Far away, in the dark stretches of space where stars flickered like tiny sparks of fire in the infinite night, a small alien civilization faced a danger unlike anything they had ever known. Their world had always been quiet, almost peaceful, with skies that shimmered in strange colors and oceans that glowed faintly at night. The aliens themselves were fragile beings, small in size but intelligent, with minds capable of complex thought and innovation. They had built their cities with care, blending nature and technology, living in harmony with the strange creatures that roamed their lands. But now, all of that was under threat. Something enormous, something deadly, was moving through their sector of space, leaving a trail of destruction behind. The aliens knew that they could not face this threat alone. Their weapons, though clever and technologically advanced for their size, were nothing compared to what approached them. They tried to study it from afar, sending out small scout drones, but the force was too fast, too powerful, and utterly unrelenting. Every attempt to stop it failed. Their scientists worked day and night, trying to find a weakness, a way to defend their world. But time was slipping away faster than their calculations could keep up. The elders of the civilization, wise and experienced, realized that their only hope lay beyond their own world. There was a species in this galaxy, feared by many, whose power was unmatched. They were known as the Deathworlders. The Deathworlders had a reputation that echoed across countless systems. Stories of their strength, their strategic genius, and their brutal efficiency in war had spread far and wide. Entire fleets of other civilizations had been destroyed or driven back after encountering them. Yet, despite their fearsome reputation, the Deathworlders were not mindless destroyers. They were logical, highly disciplined, and capable of evaluating a situation before acting. They could choose to intervene or to ignore, based on their analysis. For the aliens, this meant that sending a message to them was a gamble. If the Deathworlders ignored the SOS, their civilization could be destroyed. But if the message worked, salvation might arrive in the form of overwhelming power unlike anything they could hope to summon themselves. The alien leaders gathered in a vast chamber carved from the iridescent stone of their planet, their faces etched with worry. The chamber was dimly lit, filled with soft hums of energy from devices that constantly monitored the skies. Here, the council debated endlessly. They knew that if they sent the SOS, it had to be perfect, clear, urgent, and detailed enough to convey the scale of the threat, yet concise enough to not overwhelm the recipients with information. Days turned into nights, and nights into days, as they refined the message. Consulting scientists, military officers, and diplomats alike, every word was weighed carefully. Every piece of intelligence about the threat had to be accurate. The survival of their civilization depended on it. When the SOS was finally ready, it was no ordinary distress signal. It was a sophisticated transmission, encoded in multiple layers, carrying not just a call for help but also detailed analysis of the enemy, their speed, their weaponry, their tactics, and even their patterns of movement. It was a desperate plea but also a demonstration of the aliens' intelligence, showing the Deathworlders that they were not fools to waste their time on. The transmission was launched into the void, a tiny spark traveling across countless light years toward the unknown. The aliens watched anxiously as it disappeared into the depths of space, hoping that it would reach the Deathworlders in time. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, in a sector known for its formidable defenses and industrial power, the Deathworlders were going about their routine. Their massive ships floated silently in orbit around their homeworld, each one a fortress in itself, bristling with weapons and shielded by energy fields that could withstand almost any attack. The Deathworlder Council, composed of the most intelligent and strategic minds in their species, oversaw the operations of these fleets. They monitored trade, diplomacy, and, most importantly, the security of their territories. Life for the Deathworlders was a constant balance between preparation and action. Even in times of peace, they trained, strategized, and observed the galaxy, always alert for threats and opportunities alike. When the alien SOS finally reached them, it triggered an immediate response. The transmission arrived at the Council's main intelligence hub, where it was intercepted and decoded by their top analysts. At first, some members of the Council were skeptical. They had received countless messages from distant civilizations claiming danger or begging for aid. Most were exaggerations or mistakes. But this SOS was different. The data within the transmission was precise, coherent, and alarming. It described a threat capable of destroying entire planets, with evidence that could be verified independently. The Council's initial skepticism began to fade. The situation was serious. This was not a bluff or a simple request for assistance. It was a warning backed by intelligence, and ignoring it could have consequences not just for the alien civilization but potentially for the balance of power in the sector itself. The Council debated intensely. Some argued that intervening in a distant system was risky. The Deathworlders had enough enemies and potential conflicts closer to home. Others countered that their reputation demanded action when a civilization in genuine peril called for help. The strategist assigned to study the SOS, a veteran with decades of experience in interstellar conflicts, analyzed every detail. He traced the trajectory of the incoming threat, calculated the probability of its destructive potential, and evaluated the chances of success if the Deathworlders intervened. His conclusion was clear: ignoring the SOS could allow a dangerous force to grow unchecked, which might eventually threaten even the Deathworlders' own territories. After long deliberation, the Council made a historic decision. They would act. The Deathworlders, known for their precision and decisiveness, began preparing to respond. The story of this small alien civilization, sending out a fragile SOS in the hope of survival, had set in motion events that would ripple across the galaxy. What had started as a desperate cry for help was about to awaken the full might of one of the most formidable species in the universe. Even as the Deathworlders prepared, back on the alien world, life continued in tense uncertainty. The inhabitants of the planet waited anxiously, torn between hope and fear. Some doubted whether the Deathworlders would arrive in time. Others dared to dream that help was on the way. Children played cautiously under skies filled with the hum of warning sirens, while scientists worked frantically to bolster defenses, even knowing that nothing they could build would match the might of the Deathworlders' war fleet. Each moment that passed brought them closer to potential salvation or total destruction. The alien SOS had done more than just request aid. It had forced two civilizations to acknowledge each other. The fragile and desperate intelligence of a small alien world had reached the ears of a species whose power was unmatched. That simple, desperate act of sending of a single transmission across the void was about to change everything. From the silent depths of space, signals began traveling toward a destiny that neither civilization could fully understand yet. The stage was set, tension built, and the first chapter of a story that would unfold across light years had begun. It was in this moment of uncertainty, hope, and tension that the universe seemed to hold its breath. The aliens had taken a gamble, a desperate leap into the unknown. The Deathworlders had received the call. Their curiosity and sense of duty piqued. The story was only beginning, but even this first act was filled with suspense, anticipation, and the weight of what was to come. The fragile spark of hope for a small civilization was now entwined with the unstoppable force of a galactic power, and the consequences of this meeting would echo far beyond anyone's imagination. Once the decision had been made by the Deathworlder Council to respond to the alien SOS, their entire civilization shifted into motion. For the Deathworlders, preparation was not just an act, it was an art. Every plan, every ship, every soldier had to be ready for the unimaginable. The Council summoned generals, engineers, scientists, and pilots, all experts in their fields, to the central command chambers. The room itself was massive, filled with holographic star maps and displays showing fleets in orbit, weapon systems, and communications signals stretching across light years. Each member of the Council had a role, and each role was critical, because failure was not an option. The Deathworlders' war fleet was legendary across the galaxy. Each ship was a fortress, designed not just for attack but also for endurance. The hulls were constructed from the strongest alloys known, reinforced with energy shields capable of deflecting even the deadliest weapons. Inside, the ships were teeming with machinery, weapons, and soldiers. Some ships carried thousands of troops, while others housed massive cannons capable of destroying planets. There were ships for reconnaissance, ships for direct assault, and ships designed to transport and protect the alien civilization that had sent the SOS. Preparing this fleet was a task of enormous complexity, but for the Deathworlders it was routine. As the fleet was mobilized, each ship's crew received detailed briefings. Soldiers were trained in every imaginable scenario, from small skirmishes to full-scale planetary invasions. They studied the alien threat described in the SOS, learning its strengths and weaknesses, and planning strategies to counter them. Pilots ran simulations over and over again, practicing maneuvers through asteroid fields, near planets, and in deep space where nothing was visible except distant stars. Engineers inspected every weapon in every system, ensuring that no failure could occur during the journey. Even the smallest error could lead to disaster, and the Deathworlders knew it. The preparations were not only practical but psychological. The soldiers were conditioned for battle, their minds sharpened for the challenges that lay ahead. They understood the importance of precision, timing, and coordination. For the Deathworlders, a war fleet was like a single living organism, each part relying on the others to survive and succeed. The generals emphasized discipline above all else. There could be no hesitation, no confusion, and no personal agendas. In the heat of battle, only focus and strategy would decide victory or defeat. Meanwhile, the alien civilization waited, unaware of the scale of what was happening on the other side of the galaxy. They had no idea that the SOS they sent, a simple call for help, had set in motion an operation of unimaginable magnitude. While the aliens continued to monitor the approaching threat in their sector, the Deathworlders' fleet was already forming, moving into position for the journey that would take them across light years of space. For the Deathworlders, speed and efficiency were critical, but so was preparation. They could not risk encountering a force they were not fully ready to destroy. The process of assembling the fleet was on. Massive ships rose from orbital docks, engines glowing as they powered up for departure. Smaller vessels darted between the giants, carrying supplies, weapons, and additional troops. Communication lines buzzed with constant updates, each officer coordinating with countless others across multiple star systems. The scale of the operation was staggering, yet it was executed with precision. Ships aligned in formation, their paths carefully calculated to avoid collision and ensure maximum efficiency. In space, mistakes could be fatal, and the Deathworlders made no mistakes. While preparing for deployment, the Council did not ignore intelligence. They had analysts monitoring the region near the alien SOS, tracking the enemy's movement and predicting possible traps. The threat was unlike anything most civilizations had faced, capable of destroying planets with advanced weapons and unpredictable strategies. The Deathworlders needed more than brute strength. They needed knowledge, insight, and a perfect plan. Every calculation was checked multiple times, every possibility considered, and every risk minimized. The SOS provided critical information, but it was the Deathworlders' own analysis that would determine the outcome of the coming confrontation. As the fleet completed its preparations, there was a sense of controlled urgency throughout the command centers. For the Deathworlders, this mission was about more than simply responding to a plea for help. It was about demonstrating their power, their ability to act decisively, and their skill in executing complex operations. The mobilization of the fleet itself sent a message across the galaxy. The Deathworlders were watching. They were aware, and they would act where necessary. This display of capability was both a warning to potential enemies and a reassurance to the aliens who had called for aid. Once all ships were ready, the final checks began. Weapons systems were powered up, shields tested, navigation calibrated, communications were verified between vessels, ensuring that even across light years the fleet could act as a single entity. Pilots performed last-minute simulations, soldiers ran through battle drills, and commanders reviewed strategies repeatedly. The scale of the operation was such that even a minor failure could jeopardize the mission. Yet, the Deathworlders thrived on such challenges. Their entire culture was built around overcoming the impossible with discipline, intelligence, and relentless determination. The aliens, meanwhile, remained unaware of how close help was. Their days were filled with fear and preparation. As they continued to study the incoming threat and bolster their fragile defenses, they had little more than hope to cling to, yet that hope was rooted in their decision to reach out across the galaxy. The SOS had traveled through vast distances, crossing stars and voids, until it reached beings whose power could ensure survival. This simple act of reaching out, sending a signal of desperation, had united two civilizations in ways neither could have imagined. As the fleet finally moved out, leaving their homeworld behind, the Deathworlders demonstrated the full might of their civilization. Ships glided silently through space, their engines leaving faint trails of light, forming formations that could strike with deadly precision. Each vessel was a fortress, carrying weapons, troops, and advanced technology. Reconnaissance ships scouted ahead, while the main fleet advanced in perfect coordination. The scale of the operation was awe-inspiring, even to those within the fleet. It was a dance of strategy, power, and preparation, a display of the Deathworlders' unmatched capabilities. During the journey, the fleet continued to monitor the enemy threat described in the SOS sensors, scanned distant star systems, searching for anomalies, energy spikes, or signs of destruction. Reports were transmitted back to the command ships, where strategists adjusted plans and The Deathworlders understood that flexibility was as important as power. No plan could survive the unpredictable nature of space, and so they adapted, anticipating threats, plotting counterattacks, and ensuring that when the moment of confrontation arrived, nothing would be left to chance. The anticipation among the soldiers was palpable. They had been trained for combat, but the scale of this mission was unlike anything they had ever experienced. They were not merely fighting for territory or resources. They were responding to a call for survival from another civilization. The enormity of the task did not intimidate them. It fueled their focus and determination. Each knew that their actions could save an entire species, and the responsibility only sharpened their skill and resolve. For the aliens, life continued under the shadow of fear, unaware that salvation was already en route. Every day brought new signs of danger, unusual energy readings, debris from destroyed outposts, and sightings of strange ships on the fringes of their system. They continued their desperate preparations, fortifying cities, building shelters, and training those who could fight. And yet, in the midst of this tension, a faint hope began to grow, born from the knowledge that they had reached out across the galaxy, somewhere far away. Beings of immense power were preparing to come to their aid. The stage was set for an encounter that would change the course of history. The Deathworlders' fleet, massive, disciplined, and fully armed, was moving through the void, driven by strategy, preparation, and an unyielding sense of purpose. The alien civilization, fragile yet intelligent, waited in a mixture of fear and hope, their fate linked to forces far beyond their understanding. What had begun as a simple SOS was now a complex operation involving preparation, coordination, and the projection of overwhelming power across light years of space. The narrative emphasizes the meticulous planning, the awe-inspiring scale, and the discipline of the Deathworld, all while maintaining the tension and suspense of the alien civilization's vulnerability. The SOS had triggered a response that was as much about power and precision as it was about survival. And so, with every ship prepared, every soldier ready, and every strategy in place, the fleet moved forward into the unknown, setting the stage for the next phase of the story. The journey through uncharted space and the eventual confrontation with the threat that had sparked this epic mobilization. The Deathworlders fleet, now fully mobilized, glided silently through the void of space, leaving their homeworld far behind. Stars stretched endlessly in every direction, some bright and fiery, others faint and distant, as if scattered like dust across the dark canvas of the galaxy. For those aboard the massive ships, the view was both beautiful and intimidating. The vast emptiness of space made even the most powerful beings feel a certain smallness, yet the Deathworlders were unshaken. Their focus remained unwavering, every pilot, soldier, and commander intent on the mission ahead. As the fleet moved into uncharted regions, the journey itself became a test of endurance, coordination, and patience. Navigating through unknown sectors was never simple. Asteroid fields drifted silently, hiding jagged rocks the size of cities, while stray comets streaked across their path, threatening to collide with even the most careful ships. Sensors constantly scanned the surroundings, calculating trajectories, monitoring energy readings, and detecting any signs of danger. The Deathworlders' technology was advanced enough to detect even subtle anomalies, but the universe was vast and unpredictable, and caution was essential. Communication between ships was constant. Every vessel sent reports, relayed sensor readings, and confirmed their positions relative to the rest of the fleet. A single miscalculation could spell disaster. The pilots and navigators relied on precision calculations, plotting complex courses that twisted and turned through gravitational fields, asteroid belts, and uncharted nebulae. Each maneuver had to be flawless, because any mistake could not only destroy a ship but also endanger the entire fleet. Despite the constant vigilance, there was a rhythm to the operation, a synchrony that only decades of discipline and training could create. The Deathworlders' fleet moved in layers. Scout ships flitted ahead like shadows, scanning every system, every asteroid, and every energy signature they could detect. These reconnaissance vessels were lightly armed but highly maneuverable, capable of avoiding danger while feeding crucial information back to the main fleet. Behind them came the larger warships, massive fortresses bristling with weapons and shields. These ships moved like titans, slow and deliberate, but capable of unleashing destruction on a scale few civilizations could even imagine. Command ships remained near the center, coordinating maneuvers, analyzing data, and ensuring that every strategy could be executed perfectly. During the journey, the fleet began to detect unusual phenomena, scenes of the very threat described in the SOS. Energy readings flickered in the distance, intense and unnatural, as if some immense power was moving through the sector. Reports came in of destroyed outposts and small colonies, evidence of the enemy's devastating capabilities. The Deathworlders analyzed these reports carefully. Every fragment of data mattered. Each clue helped them understand the enemy's strategy, its weaknesses, and the best way to approach the final confrontation. While the fleet moved forward steadily, the commanders never relaxed. The unknown threat could strike at any time, and the Deathworlders had no intention of being caught off guard. The journey was not without challenges. Cosmic storms erupted without warning, magnetic fields twisted navigation paths, and debris from destroyed celestial bodies littered the fleet's course. Every obstacle required skillful maneuvering, and every decision had to be precise. Pilots coordinated with sensors and engineers in real time, making split-second adjustments to avoid collisions and maintain formation. The scale of the operation was staggering, yet the Deathworlders thrived on challenges. They saw each danger as a test of their skill and preparation, and their disciplined response ensured that the fleet advanced without loss. Even in these moments of intense focus, the soldiers and crews experienced the psychological weight of their mission. They were not traveling for conquest, as they often did, but for the protection of a civilization far weaker than themselves. Many reflected on the stakes involved. At the alien SOS, they were responding to described a threat capable of wiping out entire worlds. The thought that failure was not an option, that their precision, skill, and coordination were the only things standing between life and annihilation for an entire species, and added a profound gravity to every action. Meanwhile, the alien civilization waited anxiously, unaware of how close their saviors were. On their world, scientists monitored the strange movements in the void, attempting to predict the enemy's approach. Citizens fortified cities, stockpiled resources, and prepared shelters, while children played cautiously under the shadow of warning sirens. Hope and fear were intertwined, but they clung to the possibility that help was on the way. Little did they know that a fleet of overwhelming power was already slicing through the void, moving faster than anything they could have imagined. Driven by precision, discipline, and determination, the Deathworlders continued to rely heavily on technology to guide their path. Long-range sensors detected gravitational anomalies, radiation bursts, and faint energy signals, all of which had to be analyzed to avoid traps. Commanders constantly adapted the fleet's route, making minor course corrections to maximize efficiency and minimize risk. Every step of the journey was carefully calculated, every potential obstacle anticipated. The combination of skill, technology, and foresight allowed the fleet to navigate through regions where lesser civilizations might have been destroyed. As the fleet progressed, reports of enemy activity became more frequent. The threat described in the SOS was not idle, it was active, moving with purpose, leaving a trail of destruction behind. The Deathworlders studied these attacks carefully, looking for patterns, weaknesses, and opportunities. Each destroyed outpost, each energy spike, provided insight into the enemy's tactics. The strategists used this information to refine battle plans, ensuring that when the time for confrontation came, the fleet would be ready for any scenario. Despite the tension, there were moments of awe and reflection within the fleet. Crew members looked out at the stars, noting the beauty of distant galaxies, the swirling colors of nebulae, and the silent majesty of planets drifting alone in space. Even amid war preparation, there was recognition of the vastness of the universe and the small yet crucial role they played in it. The juxtaposition of the fleet's destructive power and the serene beauty of the cosmos was striking, reminding them that even in the pursuit of survival, life and wonder persisted. As the fleet neared the coordinates provided by the unknown territory grew more dangerous. Sensor readings became more chaotic, with energy fluctuations, debris, and unidentified objects creating a complex and perilous environment. Pilots had to navigate through narrow gaps, while recon ships scouted ahead for traps. Every command had to be executed flawlessly, and the fleet relied on the experience and training of every individual on board. The Deathworlders understood that the journey was as critical as the battle itself. One misstep in uncharted space could jeopardize the entire mission. The anticipation of confrontation added an additional layer of intensity. Soldiers trained for countless scenarios, yet nothing could fully prepare them for the unpredictability of the enemy. Commanders reviewed strategies constantly, adjusting formations, communication protocols, and response plans. Scouts relayed real-time updates, ensuring that the main fleet could react instantly to any threat. The Deathworlders' ability to combine foresight with flexibility allowed them to maintain dominance even in completely unknown territory. Throughout the journey, the alien SOS remained a guiding beacon, reminding the fleet of their purpose. This was not simply a mission of strategy or conquest, it was a mission to save lives. Every maneuver, every calculation, every adjustment in formation was made with the knowledge that failure was not an option. The small alien civilization's hope rested on the fleet's success, and the Deathworlders were determined not to fail. This sense of duty gave focus to every soldier, reinforcing the discipline and precision that had made their species legendary. Finally, after navigating through treacherous fields, avoiding potential ambushes, and carefully studying every energy signature along the way, the fleet drew closer to the alien system. The tension on board was palpable. Every sensor reading, every communication, every report from the scouts was scrutinized with the utmost care. The unknown enemy could appear at any moment, and the Deathworlders had to be ready. The stakes were clear. The survival of an entire civilization depended on their skill, coordination, and determination. By the time the fleet approached the alien world, the journey through uncharted space had tested every facet of the Deathworlders' capabilities. Their navigation, strategy, discipline, and teamwork had been pushed to the limits, yet they remained prepared for the battle to come. The alien civilization, still unaware of the scale of the force approaching, awaited salvation. The SOS that had been sent out as a fragile plea for help had led to a fleet crossing light years of unknown space, demonstrating the immense power, intelligence, and resolve of the Death. The journey itself becomes a narrative of suspense, tension, and anticipation. It highlights the challenges of navigating uncharted space, the coordination and discipline of a massive war fleet, and the psychological stakes for both the Deathworlders and the alien civilization. The story emphasizes the combination of skill, preparation, and determination required to traverse unknown regions. As the Deathworlders' fleet drew closer to the coordinates provided in the SOS, a sense of tension filled every vessel. The void of space, once empty and quiet, seemed suddenly alive with energy readings, debris, and faint signals of movement. The alien civilization that had sent the distress call had warned of a powerful enemy, but no transmission could fully capture the horror of what awaited the fleet. Commanders gathered in the central control rooms of their ships, analyzing every sensor reading, every subtle disturbance in the cosmic background, and every trace left behind by the enemy. The time for careful travel was ending. The time for action was approaching. When the fleet finally entered the system, the first shocking sight greeted them: devastation. The alien world was partially destroyed, cities reduced to rubble, and forests scorched, leaving eerie smoking scars across the landscape. Orbital stations that had once monitored the planet were silent, some completely annihilated, their fragments drifting helplessly through space. The Deathworlders scouts relayed images back to the command ships, revealing the scale of the enemy's power. Even for the seasoned and disciplined Deathworlders, the destruction was chilling. It was clear that the alien civilization had faced a formidable opponent, one that had struck swiftly and with brutal efficiency. The survivors of the alien world were few, and those that remained were scattered, hiding in caves, shelters, and underground cities. When the Deathworlders made contact with them, the aliens' relief was palpable. They had barely survived, and the arrival of the fleet, visible in orbit above their world, inspired hope and awe. The Deathworlders, immense in power and precision, were not only their saviors but also a symbol of what could be achieved with determination, skill, and strength. The aliens, fragile yet intelligent, began to recount the horrors they had endured at the hands of the enemy. They described massive, fast-moving ships that could destroy entire cities in moments, attacks that seemed unpredictable, and an enemy force that had overwhelmed them despite their best defenses. The Deathworlders, in turn, were methodical. They did not rush into combat without understanding the situation fully. Reconnaissance ships scanned the surrounding space, analyzing enemy movements, weapon signatures, and potential traps. Every detail mattered. Even the smallest anomaly could signal a hidden threat. Strategists studied the alien reports, cross-referencing them with sensor data, and formulated multiple potential plans for engagement. Unlike the enemy they were about to face, the Deathworlders relied not only on brute force but also on intelligence, preparation, and foresight. They understood that underestimating an opponent, no matter how fragile they seemed in comparison, could be dangerous. While preparations continued in orbit, the Deathworlders established communication with the alien survivors, offering instructions and reassurances. They coordinated evacuation plans for the remaining civilians, ensuring their safety while the fleet prepared for engagement. Soldiers were assigned to protect key locations. Engineers began reinforcing critical structures, and pilots readied their ships for rapid deployment. The aliens watched in awe as every movement was executed with precision, their hopes rising with each passing moment. They had called for help, and now the full might of one of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations was acting on their behalf. Despite the relief brought by the Deathworlders' arrival, tension remained high. The enemy was still near, its presence detectable in the void, and the situation could deteriorate at any moment. The Deathworlders' fleet maintained a defensive formation around the alien world, creating layers of protection and ensuring that any enemy attack would be met with overwhelming force. Scouts and reconnaissance ships monitored the edges of the system, sending back real-time updates, while the main fleet prepared for the possibility of a sudden strike. The level of coordination required was immense, yet every crew member performed their role with discipline and precision. As the enemy approached, its presence became undeniable. Ships of various sizes, moving with speed and intent, appeared on the sensors. The destruction they had already caused was evident in the debris fields and scattered energy readings. The Deathworlders studied the enemy's formation, their approach patterns, and their weapon signatures. Every observation was used to refine the battle plan. The enemy was powerful, but the Deathworlders had the advantage of preparation, discipline, and superior technology. They remained calm, analyzing every option before taking action. The alien survivors, though frightened, began assisting the Deathworlders where they could. Scientists and engineers who had survived the initial attacks offered knowledge of the enemy's tactics, technology, and weaknesses. They guided the Deathworlders in understanding the environment, potential hazards, and critical areas that required protection. Though small and fragile, these aliens had survived by using intelligence and cunning, and their insights became valuable in the strategy the Deathworlders were developing. This cooperation demonstrated the merging of two civilizations, one vast and powerful, the other small but brilliant, each complementing the other in the face of overwhelming danger. Preparations for combat intensified. The fleet repositioned in anticipation of the enemy's first strike. Warships moved into strategic positions, creating a layered defense that would allow them to counter any attack while protecting the vulnerable alien population below. Soldiers ran final drills, ensuring that every weapon system was operational and every maneuver memorized. Pilots completed last-minute simulations, refining their timing and coordination to ensure that when the enemy engaged, every movement would be precise and effective. Even the smallest ship had a role to play, contributing to the larger strategy in ways that would make the difference between victory and disaster. As the enemy drew closer, tension in the fleet became palpable. Sensors picked up energy surges, indicating weapon charging and fleet movement. The first contact was imminent. The Deathworlders' command ships coordinated signals across the fleet, ensuring that every vessel acted as part of a single, unified organism. This coordination was essential, because even the smallest misstep could allow the enemy to exploit weaknesses and strike devastating blows. The Deathworlders, however, had trained for this, and their preparation allowed them to remain composed in the face of imminent battle. Finally, the enemy revealed itself fully. Dozens of ships emerged from the darkness of space, moving aggressively toward the alien world. Their weapons glowed ominously, and their formations suggested a combination of strategy and chaos. The Deathworlders assessed their capabilities, noting the range, power, and potential weaknesses of each ship. Plans were adjusted instantly, formations altered, and soldiers readied for engagement. The enemy may have intended to intimidate or overwhelm, but they had underestimated the discipline, intelligence, and coordination of the Deathworlders. Even as the battle approached, the alien survivors watched with a mixture of fear and hope. The appearance of the Deathworlders' fleet, their massive ships bristling with weapons and their soldiers ready for combat, inspired confidence. They saw beings of immense power acting with precision and purpose, a stark contrast to the chaos that had previously threatened them. Though fragile, the aliens understood that their fate now rested in the hands of these formidable saviors, and they clung to that hope as the enemy drew closer. The Deathworlders' fleet held its positions, sensors scanning, weapons systems online, and strategies locked in. Every ship, from the smallest reconnaissance vessel to the massive warships, was prepared to act in perfect coordination. The alien world beneath them, scarred but still standing, represented both the stakes of the battle and the purpose of their mission. The Deathworlders did not fight for conquest. They fought to protect, to ensure survival, and to demonstrate the decisive power that had brought them across light years of space. In this tense, fragile moment, both civilizations awaited the outcome. The Deathworlders' calm precision contrasted sharply with the enemy's aggressive approach. Every second, every movement, every sensor reading mattered. The aliens' survival, the fleet's reputation, and the balance of power in the sector depended on the actions that were about to unfold. And in this suspended state, just before battle erupted, the universe seemed to hold its breath, awaiting the clash of immense forces and the first true test of strategy, skill, and courage. The methodical preparation of the Deathworlders, the vulnerability of the alien civilization, and the looming threat of a powerful enemy, it sets the stage for the climactic confrontation, balancing suspense, strategic thinking, and emotional stakes, showing how intelligence, discipline, and coordination can meet overwhelming danger while highlighting the fragile hope of those in need. The moment had finally arrived. After a journey spanning countless light years through unknown space and untold dangers, the Deathworlders' fleet faced the enemy directly above the alien world. The ships, massive and perfectly aligned, formed a protective shield around the planet. Every vessel, from the smallest scout to the largest warship, was positioned with military precision, ready to strike in coordinated harmony. The alien survivors, watching from below, could only imagine the scale of the power hovering above them. To them, the Deathworlders were no longer distant saviors. They were a living embodiment of hope, their presence a tangible guarantee that someone strong had heard their call and would not fail them. The enemy arrived with overwhelming aggression. Ships of every size surged forward, their weapons glowing ominously, energy trails streaking across the void. Explosions from previous encounters illuminated the edges of the battlefield, and clouds of debris floated in the vast darkness, remnants of the havoc the enemy had wreaked on distant colonies and outposts. The Deathworlders did not panic. Years of discipline, preparation, and strategic training guided every action. Their sensors tracked every movement, their commanders calculated every possible maneuver, and their soldiers stood ready to act in perfect coordination. The first shots were fired. The enemy unleashed a barrage of energy, testing the Deathworlders' defenses. Shields flared, absorbing much of the attack, while some smaller ships took minor hits. The fleet responded instantly. Turrets and cannons opened fire with deadly accuracy, striking enemy ships in unison. Explosions lit up the darkness as projectiles tore through enemy hulls, and strategic strikes disabled key vessels. The Deathworlders' power was overwhelming, but they maintained focus, ensuring that every action was calculated to minimize risk while maximizing impact. Each strike was precise, leaving no chance for error, because even the smallest mistake could shift the battle's outcome. The alien survivors watched in awe as the Deathworlders fought. They had experienced fear and despair for weeks, but now they saw hope transform into action. Even though they were vulnerable and fragile, the presence of such power inspired courage. Children and adults alike followed the battle through view, witnessing the might of the fleet that had answered their SOS for them. The sight of perfectly coordinated ships striking with precision was more than just strategy, it was reassurance. The enemy, which had seemed unstoppable, was being challenged by beings whose skill, discipline, and determination exceeded anything they had imagined. As the battle intensified, the Deathworlders adapted continuously. The enemy tried to change formation, attempting to outmaneuver the fleet, but every move was anticipated. Commanders adjusted positions, redirected firepower, and launched counterattacks with flawless timing. Smaller, more agile ships darted through openings, distracting enemy units and drawing fire away from the main fleet. Larger warships unleashed concentrated volleys of energy, obliterating clusters of enemy vessels. Every strike was synchronized, each movement reinforcing the others. The Deathworlders had mastered the art of war to such an extent that even the most chaotic attacks from the enemy could be countered with elegant precision. The enemy, though powerful, was gradually overwhelmed. Their initial aggression met with precise counterattacks resulted in critical losses. Ships that had seemed indestructible were torn apart, their energy cores exploding into brilliant bursts of light. Others were disabled, drifting helplessly in space. The Deathworlders did not celebrate prematurely. They knew that even a single surviving enemy unit could prolong the battle or threaten the alien civilization below. Strategy dictated restraint, focus, and constant evaluation. Every shot, every maneuver, every calculation mattered. Their discipline and preparation were the key to their success, ensuring that the overwhelming force of their fleet was channeled with precision. Amid the chaos of battle, the alien survivors began to understand the scale of the Deathworlders' power. They witnessed a civilization that did not rely solely on strength but combined intellect, strategy, and precision. The Deathworlders' actions were calculated and deliberate. They moved as a single entity, each ship aware of the others, responding in perfect harmony to every threat. This was a force unlike anything the aliens had ever imagined, capable of striking fear into the heart of even the most dangerous enemies while protecting those who could not protect themselves. The battle stretched across the system. Enemy ships attempted desperate maneuvers, trying to strike critical points or divide the fleet, but the Deathworlders anticipated every tactic. Scout ships relayed real-time information, allowing commanders to adjust formations instantly. Weapon systems targeted key enemy vessels with pinpoint accuracy, disabling them before they could cause significant damage. The destruction was immense, yet methodical. The Deathworlders struck decisively, minimizing unnecessary destruction while ensuring that no enemy escape or counterattack was possible. Their strategy was efficient, ruthless, and effective. As the enemy faltered, the Deathworlders launched boarding parties to capture valuable technology and gather intelligence. Smaller enemy craft, attempting to flee, were intercepted by agile ships that blocked escape routes. The battle became a demonstration of dominance as much as it was a fight for survival. Every move by the Deathworlders reinforced the lesson that power, when combined with discipline and strategy, could overcome even the most aggressive and seemingly unstoppable adversary. The alien civilization below watched in amazement, realizing that they were witnessing not just a battle but a masterclass in military precision and coordination. The climax of the battle came as the enemy's main strike force attempted one final push. A massive, heavily armed vessel surged forward, intending to break the fleet's formation and reach the planet. The Deathworlders responded immediately. Coordinated volleys from multiple warships struck the vessel from every direction. Shields flared under the concentrated fire, and explosions rocked its hull. Despite its size and power, the enemy ship could not withstand the combined force of the fleet. Precision strikes targeted its engines, weapons, and command center. Within moments, the massive ship was disabled, floating silently as its crew faced inevitable defeat. The remaining enemy ships, seeing the destruction of their flagship, scattered in disarray, leaving the battlefield under the control of the Deathworlders. With the enemy neutralized, the Deathworlders turned their attention to the alien civilization. Soldiers and engineers worked to stabilize critical structures, repair damage, and secure vulnerable areas. Reconnaissance ships scanned the surrounding space to ensure no remnants of the enemy remained. The aliens, who had lived in fear for so long, finally experienced a sense of relief and safety. Their planet, though scarred by destruction, was no longer under immediate threat. The Deathworlders had not only defeated the enemy, but had also ensured that the alien civilization could begin the process of rebuilding and recovery. In the aftermath, the alien leaders expressed their gratitude. Words could not capture the depth of relief and awe they felt. They had sent out a simple SOS, a fragile plea for help, and it had been answered by beings of immense power and discipline. The Deathworlders, who had demonstrated not only their strength but also their intelligence and strategic mastery, became legendary in the eyes of the survivors. Their presence had transformed desperation into hope, fear into confidence, and chaos into order. The aliens' world, though damaged, had been saved, and the balance of power in the sector had been forever altered. Even as the fleet prepared to depart, their mission was not complete. The Deathworlders ensured that the alien civilization could defend itself against any remaining threats. They shared insights, technology, and strategic guidance, empowering the survivors to maintain vigilance. This act reinforced a critical lesson. Power alone was not enough. Intelligence, preparation, and guidance were equally vital to survival. The Deathworlders had not merely won a battle. They had secured the future of an entire civilization. As the fleet left the system, the aliens watched with a mixture of awe and gratitude. Their fragile SOS had triggered a sequence of events that they could scarcely have imagined, leading to the arrival of a force capable of confronting and defeating an enemy beyond their comprehension. The Deathworlders' journey, their preparation, and their victory had demonstrated the true meaning of power, discipline, and strategy. In the vastness of space, where countless civilizations struggled and fell, The small alien world had survived because one of the galaxy's most formidable forces had answered its call. The battle, the demonstration of discipline and strategy, and the protection of the alien civilization. It highlights the precision and intelligence of the Deathworlders, the awe and gratitude of the aliens, and the final outcome of the SOS that set these events in motion. The narrative concludes with a sense of triumph, hope, and lasting impact, showing how preparation, coordination, and decisive action can overcome even the most powerful threats in the universe.